Hello, 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 y bendición. Welcome to Pero Who Am I? A podcast about self discovery and the life of a modern day Latina with your host, Lisa Marie. This week's Spanish lesson of the week is going to be the word quinceañera, which is a rite of passage that symbolizes a girl's entrance into womanhood when she turns 15, and traditionally it showcases her purity and readiness for marriage. The quinceañera is a widely celebrated birthday. I don't want to call it a birthday party, but it is widely celebrated amongst the Latino community. And in recent years, it has become more Americanized, where people are celebrating their sweet 16, but with the quinceañera flair. The quinceañera could be something super small or it can be very elaborate. Most quinceañeras have a mass. You have your catered party where you kind of similar to I don't want to say a wedding, but it's the same concept. And then the transition during your party, you have a moment where your parents, your dad, will change out your flat shoes for heels, and this symbolizes you a woman or a young lady transitioning into her womanhood. I remember I had a sweet 16, but it was very, very quinceañera like, where I had the damas or the court. We did the dance. We did a showcase dance per se. And then we also had the traditional changing of the shoes where I walked in flats and my parents changed out my flat shoes and put me into heels. And this kind of just symbolized that I was entering womanhood. And it's one of those memories that I will forever, ever remember. It is this week's Spanish lesson because during today's topic, we did discuss my mom saving up to help pay for my quinceañera. But I wanted to kind of clarify I did have a sweet 16 just with the quinceañera flair. Have you thought about starting your own podcast and just aren't sure of the what's, the where's, the who's, the when, or the how? Check out Idea to Launch Academy. Carla Wilmaris will take you step by step on how to launch your podcast in 30 days. I'll be sure to post a link in the description. All right, my friends, I am joined today with my good friend, Lenny Cruz, and we're going to discuss some very important topics that I know personally have pertained to me recently, and I'm sure many of you with your journeys. Finances is a huge, huge subject that in school we are not really taught how to deal with our finances. So as an adult, you're backtracking and you're trying to fix all the wrongs. So Lenny, if you don't mind, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Alrighty. My name is Lenny Cruz. I started my financial journey probably about 5-6 years ago. And through that process, like anything, it's a learning experience. So I went from, carrying a lot of debt and looking at the way society does things with it and saying there's got to be a better way. So that's what I'm here to talk about. Some of the stuff that I've learned through my journey and some pointers, hopefully, that you guys can take away and use.
Awesome. So we're going to start off basically, the bare basics with budgeting. I know personally I am horrible at budgeting, and I have tried like every single possible document, app, anything you could think of. I've tried, doesn't work. I just learned to pay my bills on time, and that's it. So if you want to go ahead and let's talk about some of the basics. You have here that you want a goal. And I know, like for me, I'm looking to buy a house and planning a wedding at the same time. It's kind of crazy. So our goals, we have two separate goals. We have our house goal, then we have the wedding goal. What would you say are some common mistakes people make when setting their budget?
It's understanding, like you're saying, you have a goal in mind, right? So from your wedding's perspective, you know how much you want to spend, how much you have allocated to spend, and what things that you want. when it comes to budgeting, a lot of people don't set the same goals. The biggest thing is to start where you are. Don't worry about where you want to go. You have to worry about where you are currently. So that's where the budget comes in and kind of removes some of that cloud and gives you some of that certainty back, right? And that's why I always say when you do your budgets, it should be monthly and it should be every month. You should be looking at it. And the biggest thing is to start with the 4 walls. What are the 4 walls? Your shelter, the home that you live in, what's your expenses there, your transportation, your food that you're going to eat every month, and the utilities, the cost of the utilities. Once you have that down and you kind of know what the 4 walls are, you have the structure for your budget. Because now you can look at the other stuff like your debt, like you're going out, like you're eating out, like your clothing allowances and stuff like that. Because the 4 walls won't go away. Those are things that you always need. The other stuff you can tweak, and that's where everybody gets upset, gets not upset, but gets confused. So.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely understand it. It's like you end up being upside down because you're focused more on everything else than the 4 walls. So that's a really good concept. How would you, someone who's limited as to what income they do receive? So what are some tips?
Because we're not entrepreneurs and we're not like inventors, our income is our biggest wealth building asset. Keyword there is wealth, right? So how do you do it? The biggest and best thing you can do is eliminate debt. Eliminate all debt from your life. The car payment, the credit card usage, the student loans, the mortgage and stuff. You're getting into a home, that's a later conversation because that's your biggest purchase that you're ever going to do in your life, unless you're like a millionaire and you buy teams and other stuff, but that's not us. So that's your biggest purchase that you make. So that's where you have to be a little bit more focused. So we eliminate that from the budget because that's something that you're not going to do in 1 year, 2 years. Normally people with debt, standard debt, student loans, car loans, credit cards, everyday debt, you normally can eliminate that between 18 to 24 months if you buckle down, build your budget properly. So the biggest thing is to remove the debt. The other stuff you can do is, like I said, you got to have a goal. So when you have that goal, you start to remember the why you do certain things, which removes the embarrassment. The reason I'm starting with this is because rich people are allergic to leaves. Rich people are allergic to grass. So you can go out and pull leaves out of ductwork. You can go out and mow lawns and make money. You walk down the street and do that, you do it. Yes, I'm 37 years old. I'm going to go do that because I have a goal. I have a dream. I have a process. So I have to remove the embarrassment. I have to remove the image that the world gives us and remember my why. Once I remember my why, I'm going to live. I'm going to go into the next thing. If you ever listen to Dave Ramsey, he says you have to live like no one else to live like no one else, right? So those millionaires lived like no one else. They worked hard. They hustled. When the people told them no, they did all that. They did it no matter what. They did the hours. They put in the work. So now they get to live like no one else. They get to make the money like no one else. So we have to go with the same mind frame.
Yes. Right. Absolutely. You don't get to see you don't see the sweat that they did to begin with to get to where they're at. And I'm glad you mentioned Dave Ramsey. Like I follow his podcast and I have his book, and that's kind of what I started. And, I had the Everyday Dollar app and everything. And like I said, I suck when it comes to budgeting because that still didn't help me. So I got to a point where I was like, all right, as long as I got enough for the rent, I have enough for the light, like all my part is covered, then I can work on everything else. So it's like, Dave Ramsey definitely helped me change my mindset. Because I know, like, I don't know about you, but as growing up in my household, my mom was the breadwinner. And she was the one that took care of all the bills. She, dad worked, he absolutely did. But my mom was the one that paid the bills. She never taught us how to budget or how she was paying the bills or where the money was coming from. Come to find out as an adult, my mom had some side hustles going on. Bitch would work. Like, she had multiple jobs. She was busting her ass doing overtime and just to make, little things like my quinceañera, like that. My mom was working 15, 16-hour days just so she can help pay for my quinceañera. And it was like, I never really learned how to budget. I wish, like, I try to teach my kids now. It's like, you've got $20. Where do you want those $20 to go? You want to buy a pair of $80 shoes, and guess what? You're still short $60. So how are you going to earn that money? So budgeting is definitely something important, and I wish I could kind of grasp the concept of it. I think if I would have learned it early on.
No,
don't laugh
because
at me.
Everything that you're saying is the same stuff that I went through. This is what I'm saying about, like, when you start this journey, right? And I mean the getting debt free. When I started the debt free journey, it's very weird to tell people, because a lot of people say, what's your credit score look like? What's this and what's that? When you look at what the stuff that this credit score talks about, what does it talk about? See if you can catch the theme. How much debt you have, how well are you paying off the debt, what types of debt that you have, and how long have you had the debt? Right. So none of that says wealth building. None of that says millionaire builders. So why is it that 90% of America cares about a credit score, but the 1% to 2% billionaires, millionaires don't? It's because they understand the principle. Right. Just like you're talking about, school doesn't teach us that for a reason. It teaches us to be workers, right? The thought process of school is teach us how to be factory workers, to go through the process and do from point A to point B. That's it. Budgeting, balancing this and that, they don't want us to know that. It's not that they don't want us to know it, but they don't think of it as an important thing. That's left the onus of us as parents to actually teach our kids.
No, you're absolutely right. And, it's really unfortunate that it's not taught in school, and it really should be. Because as adults, it's hard to train someone a different mindset when you've been so embedded. This is how you do it. This is the way it's supposed to do. I mean, I remember taking economics, and no way was I taught budgeting or debt. I mean, I graduated high school, turned 18, and racked up the credit cards like crazy, thinking that I was rich because I had all these credit cards.
Seriously.
I remember the first Christmas I came home and bought like everybody a gift, and it was all on credit cards. And here I am, 35 years old. Still, well, no, I've paid off most of those credit cards, but it catches up to you, and you're not taught that. And so, like you said, it's all debt.
Yes, it is very hard. That's why budgeting is so important, because budgeting tells you what's coming in and what's going out. Once you start to see that picture, so you was talking about using apps and stuff like that. Apps are great if you're a technology person, but if you're not, pen and paper is always the way to go. Because if you know, just make 2 columns. If you know what your bills are, right? If you know, like I said, the 4 walls, and then your credit card bills, and then any other little extra expenses that you have. Now, this is why I say it's an ongoing monthly thing, is because you need to fine tune it every month, because you're not going to catch everything the first month. It may take you 6 months. It may take you 8 months to finally get a budget that makes sense with categories that make sense. And then you can start tweaking. You can start saying, man, I spent $400 on going out last month on eating. I need to find better ways to do that,
Absolutely. No, I mean, so I'm currently working at home because of everything going on, and I'm grateful for it, because I didn't realize how much I was eating out for lunch or grabbing that coffee on the way into work. And then it's like, all of a sudden, it's like, I've got a couple $100 left over in the week. And I'm like, God damn, where was that money like 5 months ago? Like, where the hell did this money go? Like, when I needed it. And it's like, it's like, shit, you were eating out. Like, I work in downtown. So it's like, everything is right there. You've got the pizza place, you've got Subway, you've got Starbucks around the corner. You've got your mom and pop Cuban store, Cuban coffee. So it's like, I know you can't make it at home because it's not the same. But it adds up, that's $5-6 for breakfast, $10 for lunch. And then, by the time you get home, you don't want to cook.
Going back out.
So you're eating out for dinner. Next, you're at $50 for the day on food alone. Multiply that 5 times, dude. It's ridiculous. So it's like, I'm grateful for working from home. And if I can continue to work from home, that's my end goal, because I don't eat out. It's, you're forcing yourself to make your coffee at home. You're forcing yourself to have your lunch. Granted, we still eat out every once in a while, but we're more conscious of where the dollars are going.
Agreed.
And that's something budgeting, like I said, the apps don't work for me. The getting out a spreadsheet, putting it all down doesn't work for me. I'm more of a internal mentally, like I write down my bills. I know where the dollars are going. I know that, from every paycheck, I need to set aside half the rent, or I need to set aside half the light bill from each paycheck, and not try and depend on one paycheck to pay all my bills. That's made it easier for me personally. I know some people who take the first paycheck of the month and pay all their bills, and then they know the second paycheck of the month, that's their spending money. I can't function like that. I have to split everything in half. And I've learned, like with the Dave Ramsey paying off your debt, that if you split your credit card bills in half, you're paying less interest. So that has helped us a lot. So, just little techniques that I think people need to choose what's going to be best for them, but just get something started.
Going back to the mind frame thing, we'll talk more about savings later on, but another thing that we have to start doing is change our mindset. And one of the things that one of the proponents that Dave Ramsey talks about is the first step that he goes through is save $1,000. Why? Because our finances are both offensive and defensive, right? We offensively attack debt, we offensively attack our bills and stuff like that, but we never think about the defensive portion, where it is how do we protect our money from having to be offensive? And how do you do that? By protecting yourself, or giving yourself that cushion from emergencies, from issues that come up, without saying, this is going to break my budget because I got into a car accident, I have to spend $500 on the deductible. Where's this money coming from? So that's why when he talks about saving that initial $1,000 prior to paying off debt, it's very important, because it creates a shift in mind frame. You start thinking about, well, shoot, what about if I get a flat tire? I need to change the engine. I need to do an engine repair. I need to do a car repair of some sort, or I need something to fix in the house or something. That shift helps.
So it's funny you say that, the $1,000. So my best friend was trying to teach me how to budget and how to be more mindful of my money. So she calls it the oh shit fund. The $1,000 is your oh shit fund. So when my fiance and I got together and we started combining our bills and everything, one of the biggest things I was like, we have to create an oh shit fund. And he'd look at me, he'd be like, what do you mean? I'm like, that flat tire, that car accident is like, oh shit, where this money coming from? It's from your oh shit fund, because that's what it's there for. So we initially had our $1,000, and that definitely saved us time and time again when we didn't realize, because my thing is, like, I created with my bank, we have where you could do like a vacation account, or you could do a holiday savings account, where you could put money into it, but you can't take money out automatically through the app or through going to the ATM machine. You literally have to call the bank, or you literally have to go into the bank and request this money be given to you. The holiday savings, it will dump it into your checking account come November, because that was what you saved up for the year for Christmas. So we created our oh shit fund out of one of those accounts. And so we're just depositing money into it, and it helped. I mean, I went on vacation for Father's Day weekend, and his alternator went out. And had we not had that cushion, one, I'm on vacation, two, I'm an hour and a half away from home, that, luckily we were able to get it replaced. We were able to get it fixed. But, it's that $1,000, it's a good foundation. You want to add to it and increase it as much as you can. And if it's, you're in a relationship, I say you should have $2,000 in there. You should have double, because it can affect either one of you. You've got a budget for your household, but really you should have a budget per person. So that old shit fund helps out.
Yes, it does.
Came in handy.
It serves its purpose.
Yeah. So speaking on debt, I know that, we're talking a lot about Dave Ramsey, and I personally love his thought process. I love the way he attacks debt, with his snowball effect and things like that. For those that don't know, the snowball effect is basically you're attacking all your debt. You're paying everything at the minimum payment, but you're taking your smallest debt, paying that off in full, and then you're attacking the next one. I did it backwards, where I attacked the biggest debt and then slowly wound down, because I found that to be easier. Plus, it was the one with the highest interest on it as well. So I think we've paid off just about almost everything, because again, we're trying to buy a house. So it's like you have to attack it. We didn't have 18 to 24 months to do this. We have 6 months to do this. So I hate.
Yeah, well, that's just the normal time frame that it takes for people to pay off their debt, because some people are really dumb. They got super far in debt. They got a $100,000 degree in underwater basket weaving, and that's not going to be taken care of in 6 months because you're not making the income there. But that's a discussion for another.
No, you're making $30,000 a year.
That's a whole nother discussion. But just framing debt from top to bottom, one thing we have to start to understand about debt, what the world teaches us is that debt is something that we leverage. But let's backtrack a second and let's look at interest, right? Because that's what we pay when we leverage debt, and that's what we earn when we invest in the stock market or we use different vehicles to save money. So compound interest works for you or against you, right? And if you rack up $6,000 on a credit card, you pay the minimum 25 or 3% payment. It takes you 5 to 7 years on that $25. You end up paying $13,000 for that same thing. But if you was to take that $25 and put it in a growth stock mutual fund for that same amount of time, you can make closer to $50,000 with that same money, based on anywhere between 6 to 9% rate of return, which is the compounding interest. So you see what I'm saying? Like, there's a balance that you have to say to yourself. This is the mind change that you have to come to when you talk about debt. You have to understand what your opportunity cost is. You're leveraging every time you use a credit card, every time you purchase or you put your car on loan, you buy a car on a loan, you pay student loans and stuff like that. You're leveraging your future. You're leveraging your future. So you're saying to yourself, okay, I'm going to leverage 7 years from now me to pay this now, to buy this now. So always, if you, like I said, you change your mindset, use 2-year decisions. How will this affect me 2 years from now? Do I need this 2 years from now? So that goes into another piece where once you get your budgeting done and you start to see, like you're seeing, your debt being paid off and you're getting into the right directions, this is where the defense has to come in, and you apply a 24-hour rule. So what happens to a lot of people is they get out of debt and then they just go right back in, because they go back into purchasing and they do that. So what I do for me personally, I have a 24-hour rule. I say anything over $300 that I want to purchase, I wait 24 hours.
Got to think about it.
Why do I do that? Because it gives me the opportunity to sit down, think about it, and not do it on impulse. And in that 24 hours, if I find out that, okay, I do want it and it fits my budget and it's not going to hurt me, great. If I find out I really don't want it, it was just nice to have because I saw this nice shiny thing at Walmart or wherever, Best Buy, then I'll just let it go. Yeah.
Correct. No, I agree with that. See, my thing is I'm more of, in the 24-hour rule, I'm looking more, can I find it cheaper within the 24 hours? If I really need it, can I find it cheaper? Because I know it's out there cheaper, or do I have a discount code? So it's like, I agree with that. Anything I'm a little bit lower. I'm more at anything over $100 to me is a big purchase right now, just because we're working towards this house and we're working, we've got a bigger goal that we're working towards. So I really appreciate hearing the 24-hour rule, because not many people stop to think about that. We're a lot of impulse buyers. And unfortunately, that's something that society has made a thing. You see these ads on social media, you see these ads everywhere, and you're like, I need that. And it's like, do you really need that? Could you find that somewhere else more inexpensive? I'm not going to say cheap, because people take that cheap as the quality, and it's like, no, but can you find that at a lower rate? And you can. I mean, I was without a car for 6 months. I don't recommend that to anybody in Florida because it's some bullshit. I mean, I had an Uber, I took the bus, I carpooled. I mean, I had to be at work at 8 o'clock in the morning. I was leaving my house at 5 in the morning so that I could carpool with my sister to the hospital to then walk 30 minutes over to downtown. And it looks like it's right next door. It's not. It's not. There's a big body of water separating Tampa General and downtown. So, I did that for 6 months, and everybody was like, oh, why don't you just go get a car? And I'm like, I need a car, but I'm not just going to get a car because you feel that I need a car right now. It took me months shopping around, took me months looking, and I did get into a car payment, but I got into a car payment that I can manage, a car payment that I know in 2 years I will have paid off my car, and I've only had it a year. So, it was one of those things, like the first time around, I got into a 7-year car loan, and worst thing anybody could do at a ridiculous interest rate. And I don't have that car anymore, but I still have the debt for it. It's like one of those type of so that's why when I was, I did the 6 months and everybody's like, how do you do it? And it's like, you just have to do it. You have to set your goal in mind. You have to, start saving where you can and push forward. So 24-hour rule, really something you got to think about.
I mean, that's the issue with debt. Going back, I'll cover a couple of quick things and then I'll go back to what you're saying. When you talked about paying off debt, you was talking about Dave Ramsey's debt snowball versus the opposite, which is called the debt avalanche. The difference is with the snowball, you take from lowest to, you line up all your debt and you do from lowest to most. You just pay the minimums, you set the minimums, and then you attack the lowest debt and then take the payments or the money and start rolling it onto the next debt until you have this huge sum of money paying off all the debt. The debt avalanche says take your debt and then line them up from highest interest rate to lowest interest rate and attack the highest interest rate until you get to the lowest one, and then you pay off all your debt. There's just different schools of thought. One's based on human behavior, the other one's based on math. I personally agree with you with the debt snowball because I don't believe that it's a math problem. Because if it was a math problem, we wouldn't be in debt in the first place. So that's a behavior problem. Correct. It's a human behavior problem. So we have to find a way to change our behavior. Going back to what you're saying about, loans and things like that. America is the most over advertised country in the world. Like no other country gets even half of the advertisements that we do. We are the biggest consumers of everything in the world. So we don't even produce our own stuff. So like the pandemic that's going on right now, what came out of that? We don't produce antibiotics in the United States. How is it that we don't? How are we buying the antibiotics, the face masks that we use? We have to outsource back to China and all these other countries to get the face masks and to get the antibiotics and get the different things that are supposed to keep us safe. That's just crazy. That's because we're consumers.
Who supposedly brought the virus over to begin with?
That's a whole political conversation. But it's just crazy. It's just crazy that we go into it. So with that said, debt is a staple part of our lives, and we have to change how we look at debt and how we handle it to then manage it. Just like you with the car, you may not have $12,000, $15,000, $13,000 to buy what would be considered a decent car. You know what I mean? But you said to yourself, I'm not going to get into a loan that's more than 36 months, being 3 years. I know you said 2, but like a 36-month loan at this amount, and this is the car that I can afford. Some people might even go out and say, I'm going to buy the $500 jalopy and save until I get that. As long as you have a plan. This is what I always say. Start where you are. Know your goals. Once you know these things, you'll stick to it and you'll find that you're more successful. It doesn't mean you got to be cheap. It doesn't mean you got to be crazy. You got to be fanatical about it. It's just knowing where you are and getting a goal to get it. Because the difference between a dream and a goal is that goal has dates. Dreams don't.
Right.
So.
Correct. Correct. No, with the thing with the car is like that's when I started the budgeting, and that's when I was like, all right, I'm comfortable paying this much. And I remember car shopping is a bitch because they want to put you in everything else. Like they tried to give me this car where my payments were going to be $550 a month, and I looked at the guy and I said, I walked in and told you I don't want to pay more than $250. Where in your mind do you think I can pay $550? I can't do it. I said, no, either you show me something that's $250 or I leave. And he couldn't show me, so I left. Literally, I think this was in November. I didn't buy my car till March. And that was, I put one of those I think it was like Car Gurus or something, where you put your search and what you're looking for. And I literally bought my car over the phone, went in to sign the paperwork.
You can get things done like that now.
Yeah. Because literally, like the car, like it popped up. It said, car payments are going to be this much. This is the mileage. Because I had, we live in Florida. I drive 35 minutes, 40 minutes to get to work. So I was like, I know I'm going to put a lot of miles on the car. So I don't want something that has high mileage, but I don't want something brand new either. So you set all these restrictions, and then it sends you on a weekly basis. Oh, look what came up in your search, and found the car. And I was like, called the dealership and I was like, I want the car. What can we do? This is how much I could put down. Did everything over the phone, and my car payment's at $250 because that's where I was. Actually, it's $265 because I added gap insurance, but gap insurance was a priority to me. It's one of those things where I was like, all right, I could bend my budget because God forbid something happens. I don't want to be stuck paying for this car that I no longer have. So that, it's $265 is what I'm paying, but I stayed within my budget.
Good. That's really good. That's important. Yeah, it is. Look at how hard you had to go. You went from November to March to try to figure that out. This goes back to the over consumerization of the United States. It's so easily to just a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And then a little bit more could turn into $550. That's an extra $300 they try to sell you and think that it was okay. I can't believe that.
Exactly. Exactly. And you sit there and, and initially they sell it to you like this big, pretty picture. And you're like, so what's the payment? The guy's like, well, it's going to be here. No. Like, they don't tell you it. They make you look at the piece of paper. And I was like, are you freaking serious? No, I can't. I got up and I looked at my fiance. I said, let's go. We're leaving. And he's like, but we can, no, we're leaving. He's like, but we're leaving. I said $250. He tried $50. $550. The man tried me. Let's go.
I'm very proud of you on that. That is huge. You know how many people would sit there and debate that question? No, it's your money, it's your life. You need to take charge.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that debt is such a huge overhead. Like, to buy a car, unless you've got the $13,000, you have to get in debt. To buy a house, unless you've got the $250,000, you have to get into debt. Like, you add all this onto you. And then if you're not smart about it, and if you're not paying attention to it, you could literally be sold a dream and not accomplish your goals.
Well, let me stop you there. You don't have to get into debt to do things. You don't have to. There are cars out there that are $500. They're not going to be pretty. Their main color is going to be Bondo, but they'll get you from point A to point B. The same thing with a home. You don't have to buy the $300,000 home. You can there's people out there. I mean, I'm not one of them, but there's people out there that will save up $200,000 and buy a home cash. There's people that can do that. And I'm talking everyday people like you and I. I'm not talking the six figures to $1 million people. I'm talking $50,000, $60,000 a year people. There's millionaires that only have never made more than $60,000 a year. Why is that? That's where future planning comes in. That's where being responsible with your money, budgeting, and understanding comes into play. And that compound interest piece that I was telling you about.
Yeah, we're going to have to talk more about that, the compound interest, so that I can get a full understanding on
that. Wait, we can save it for another subject, but I'll try to break it down a little better now. So everything that we do, we pay interest, right? Your credit cards have APRs. Your car loans have APRs. Your home is going to have it. There's a lot of things that go in there, right? And they charge an interest rate, a variable interest rate, or they charge a standard interest rate. Credit cards, they compounded every day, right? So the same thing happens, let's say, when I was talking about investing. When you invest, the stock market goes up and down every day, and it grows and it expands and it shrinks every day, right? So let's say you had, prior to the pandemic, you had 20,000 in the bank. The stock market took a dip down for March and then part of April. So you lost half of it, and then it came back up because interest started to come back up. Interest rates dropped for other things, so the stock market started to pick back up. Certain sectors were doing really well because medical became a priority. So all that stuff comes into play. So what I mean by that is that ebb and flow of interest rate is going to balance out at the end of the year how much you actually pay. Same thing with the credit cards. If you pay the minimum payment, your $6,000 payment is going to go to $13,000 by the end of the time frame that it takes you to pay. That same $6,000 that you invest is going to have a different set of a different amount once the interest compounds. So what I mean about compound interest, because I kind of got a little winded, was you can either use it for you or you can use it against you. You use it for you by investing your money into variable different things, whether you do it in the markets or if you do it on CDs, money market accounts, high yield savings account. There's all interest that's compounding that grows for you, or you could use it to leverage your future, where you put a car on loan, you use credit cards every day for everything, and you got home loans and stuff like that. So it's just figuring out where you want to use it, for you or against you, for you or against you. So you're either going to pay a penalty or you're going to receive a benefit.
That makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. I can definitely understand where you're saying, like, make it work for you instead of, taking out loans. Unfortunately.
But like I said, you have to leverage what you can leverage, right? You don't want to be in a situation where you start leveraging too much of your future, right? Like you said, the 72-month car loan, paying minimum payments on a credit card that has like $10,000 already on it. These things are real, right? America currently has in credit card loans, we have $986 billion in credit card debt. The student loan debt crisis is like 1.8 trillion. There's a problem there. And that problem starts before we even know what money is. When you're asking a 17-year-old to make a, like I said, $100,000 decision at 17. He hasn't even figured out what clothes he wants to wear for the week, let alone make a $100,000 decision. And he's making this decision on, I like the mascot for that school. That's a problem. That's a huge problem. That's why our kids are struggling. We all come out struggling from the beginning. So that's where compound interest comes in, right? They're going to compound that debt for the rest of their life to the point where they say to themselves, I can't do it. I'm just going to have this forever. Unacceptable. Or I'm going to rely on the government to give me the debt forgiveness programs, where what is the return rate? If you got 36,000 people applying for those student loan forgiveness programs, only like 60 of them actually get awarded. That's like 0.001%. So we're going to rely on that as an opportunity. This is ridiculous.
That's one of the reasons why I haven't finished school, is because I don't want to take out any more loans. Like, I've already got enough. And my biggest thing is that I need to finish. And I'm literally probably like less than a year away from having my bachelor's degree. But I refuse to take out another student loan. Like, if I can't pay for it out of pocket or get tuition assistance from work, I don't need to finish right now. I'll finish eventually. But that's just not the big picture for me right now. Because I refuse to take out another student loan. And I tell the boys that all the time. I'm like, I don't want you to take out student loans. If you're going to bust your ass, get the scholarships, do what you can and try and avoid the student loans as much as possible. There's too many scholarships out there, too many grant programs for our kids to be taking out these $100,000 loans. It's ridiculous.
That's another side hustle when you're talking about getting multiple sources of income. Think about it. If you spend 2 hours a day, if your sons spend 2 hours a day sitting down, looking up scholarships, filling out the paperwork, doing different things for grants and stuff like that, that's a job. And that job can net you $30, $40, $50,000 in grants and stuff to pay for school. So not everything means you get money in your pocket. Sometimes you do things because it provides a benefit somewhere else. It doesn't just have to be, oh, I'm going to go work here and make money. It could be that as well. So keep that in mind when it comes to multiple sources of income.
No, you're absolutely right. And then as parents, you know, I know that a lot of people don't look into, like, well, in Florida prepaid, or, you know, setting up these stocks and bonds for your kids. But that's something that we probably should be doing more often, because these rich people are not necessarily paying for school at that moment because they've already saved up for it. So that's something else that, you know, I think savings comes really important once you've gotten yourself more stabilized, got that budget out the way, and whatever your saving goals are taken care of. You need to add school for your kids.
Yeah, talking about that segues into some of the other stuff. Once you know, talking about future planning, right? We're going into a little bit more of the future planning. Some of the things that we got to understand is, like I said, offense and defense, right? Once you get that $1,000 gave you that little cushion, right? Then we went and we attacked the debt and we got debt out of our lives. We still have to play defense. So what the next move has to be is to say, okay, I need to take that 1,000 and I need to now look at my budget. I know what my 4 walls are. I need to take those expenses, multiply them by 3, 6. I mean, I wouldn't say more than 6, but some people go to a year. Balance that out and get you an emergency fund, right? That emergency fund now, like in your situation, when you purchase a home and you start doing that 3 to 6 months can be the difference of an HVAC system that needs to be replaced, a roof that needs to be replaced.
Yep.
I mean, a ton of stuff. Refrigerators need to replace. Your expenses just are going to go up. But we don't think to say, well, we need to take that little oh shit fund and turn it into a oh shit fund. So that correct. 3 to 6 months, or emergency fund, as I like to say, is the next step in that planning. And another thing about future planning is we have to start using the vehicles that are available to think of our retirement. Because I don't know about you, but I'm not trying to work when I'm 90 years old. I'm not trying to be working when I'm 70 years old. So retirement vehicles are there. And this now breaks down into some of the vehicles that the job offers, like 401ks, 403bs, TSPs, and things like that, right? So one of the things that we never do is we don't actually understand what those things are, right? The 401k is a vehicle that allows us to invest in the markets. 401k, 403bs, TSPs, they're vehicles that allow us to invest in the markets tax-free. But we don't sit down and understand what the asset allocations are, what's it costing us to do it, what's the age of the stuff that we're actually invested in, and what's their rate of returns. We don't look at those things. We just kind of blindly say, well, the company's matching me 5%, 6%. I'm going to do up to the match, and then I'm going to let it go. I'll let them pick it. That should not be the case. We actually need to sit down and understand our portfolio and understand what we have, right? We need to have a good mix, which is where asset allocation comes in. We need to understand what's their cost, right? Because it's going to cost us to get involved. And I don't mean getting in and out of trades, because that's not what we're doing. I mean the cost of paying for that fund, the cost of using the tools. We have to understand that. That's why you got all these people running around getting on Acorn and Stash and this and that, but they're not looking at the cost. What's the cost of using the app, and what's the cost of the funds that they're investing in that you're buying in? You know what I mean? If it's taking 1% of your money and you got $100 in there, that's $10 coming out automatically.
Right.
Yeah. So you have to understand these things. You also have to understand the age of the funds that you're in. Are they some brand new something that's like a single stock, and you're saying, I'm going to invest in Incan Coffee, and then Incan Coffee folds in 1 year and you lose all your money? That's a horrible idea. You know, there's horror stories out there. People investing their life savings into a single stock, and it tanks and they lose everything. So we have to understand that. We also have to understand the rate of return, which is what is our return on investment, the compound interest? Is it getting, what's their annual rate of return and how long have they been doing this? Are they been doing this only 1 to 2 years? Have they been doing it 5 years? They've been doing it 10 years, 15, 20? I set a standard for myself when I look at stuff. I look at growth stock mutual funds, right? The reason I say growth stock mutual funds is because the stock market is one of the vehicles. There's like a couple of vehicles, but the stock market is one of the vehicles that creates millionaires on a daily basis. So when you get involved in it, you have to get involved in the right way. So there goes the stock portion, but the mutual funds, the reason I use mutual funds is because it's a fund, which means there's a whole litany of things that are in there. It's not just saying I'm throwing all my hopes on Apple to continue for the rest of its life. It's going to say I'm going to look at the tech sector and everybody that's in it to do it. The second thing that's important about that is that mutual funds, growth stock mutual funds, not all, that's why you have to do your research, but a lot of times they are run by an investment team of professionals, and the fund manager has a skin in the game. He has $1 million, up to $1 million in assets in his own fund. So what does that mean? He has a vested interest to make sure his fund does well. So this is very important. So I don't need to beat the market. I don't need to figure out and try to match the market to do something. I just need somebody who knows what they're doing and follow them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So,
no, I mean, there's a couple like Instagram accounts that I follow personally that are very well versed in the stock market. And when they're like putting out, I'm like, I'm gonna go look at that one and see what that's making. And they turn around and make, $5,000-$6,000 in 5 days. I'm like, what the hell? Like where? Okay. I like watching. I haven't personally invested myself into it, but just watching the trends and learning, and that's definitely something future planning.
Gotcha.
I plan on doing.
So talking about your 401k, we'll get into some of the other investment options in a minute, but talking about your 401k, main thing that you should do is when you're talking about retirement, minimum 15%. Once you get out of debt and you have all your stuff situated and you just freed up the $500 car payment, the $250 credit card payment, and the next $600 to $700 of student loans, once you start to free all that stuff up, then you can start saying to yourself, I'm going to invest in my future, and I'm going to take 15% of my overall salary to invest in that, right? This has nothing to do with how much you make. This is how much you're going to invest of your overall. Why is this important? Because it's proven that if you was to invest 15% of your salary from 25 to 30 years, right, you can easily make or jump into the millionaire club of investable assets with no debt, about $1 million to $1.2 million in sitting in investable assets between 401k and your other stuff, and a paid off home. You can be sitting nice and living at 60, at 65, right? So if you take me, let's advance me up a couple years. I'm 40 years old. I start investing now. I do 15% for the next 25 years. That's 65. I should be able to walk away from that with an average rate of anywhere between 6 to 10%. I should be able to walk away with $1.2 million of investable assets. And that's just getting my stuff in there and doing that. And that's not doing anything special. That's just investing in my 401k,
right,
investing in some other vehicles like your Roth IRAs and stuff like that, and going through it. So let's break down the categories for investing, specifically when you're talking about 401ks, Roth IRAs, and stuff like that, IRAs in general. You have your growth and income. That is your big companies, right? That's Johnson & Johnson. That's like Microsoft is kind of there, but the staples like IBM and stuff like that. These are staple companies that have been around for a very long time. They're not going to do this in the stock market. Regardless of what happens, they're going to stay pretty much the same. So they're going to cost a little bit more, but you know that your money's going to steadily go with it. Then you got your growth, which is considered your mid-cap stuff. And this is where you start to get some of those companies that have been around for 10 plus years, 15 plus years, but they go through the ups and downs. Elon Musk's Tesla, Apple, Samsung. Samsung's been around for a while, but what they're doing now is stuff like that. Tech industry is usually huge for that because they have these growth guys that have been around, but they haven't been around forever. Then you got your aggressive growth, which is your small caps. These are companies that don't have the 10 to 15-year history. They have maybe, anywhere from 10 or less, and they are very volatile. But you can win or you can lose. Look at Tesla. When Tesla first came out in 2010, if you had been involved with them when they first came out to where they are now, they've grown 1,000%. So you see what I'm saying? There's going to be fluctuation, but you don't want to just do that. I don't believe in single stocks. But with that balance,
right,
you're going to see, okay, I may not have gotten 1,000% from Tesla, but I got 17%. I'm still hitting my goal. My risk reward is worth it. And then, of course, international stocks, because you want to be invested in international markets, because let's face it, the world today, we're all interconnected and we all work together. So if China fails, if Japan fails, if Europe fails, if UK fails, it affects us. It affects our dollar. It affects what we do. So having a vested interest or being involved in those things, especially when they start to grow, we want to take a piece of the action. At the end of the day, I'm not a investment professional, right? So these are my ideas. These are my thoughts. In your situation, my recommendation is always to find an investment professional. And when you do find one, make sure they have the heart of a teacher. Because it's your money. It's your responsibility to take charge. They don't care. You need to understand. They need to be able to break it down for you and tell you what you're investing in, why, how, and all that stuff. So it makes sense to you, bottom line. So that's
no, it does.
That's a big thing about future planning.
No, I know, like with the 401k, like my job, we have, the tax professionals that you're supposed to talk to. And I noticed, like in other jobs, some of them were more involved than in other jobs. And so, that's one of the things that, because I'm in HR. So when it comes time to benefit, when it comes time to do benefits and stuff like that, I always tell the employees, like, reach out to your tax advisors, reach out to these people who are in charge of our retirement funds, because they're the ones that this is their job. That's what they do, and they're not going to try and steer you one way or another, but they're going to educate you on what you need to know.
That's very important.
I don't think a lot of people take advantage of that as much as they should.
They really don't. They don't.
Yeah, because I mean, me personally, I'm one of those, I've got my 10% in there. Whatever happens at this rate. But, I'm not as invested as I should be, but I've also, at a point where I'm working on other things. So I know that my mind frame, come 5 years from now, I have a goal. I want to retire at 60. Then I need to start pushing whatever it is I need to do so that I can retire comfortably at 60. Not trying to, depend on Social Security, because our age, we're probably not going to have it.
Or if it is, it's going to be pennies on the dollar. Pennies.
Exactly. If we're lucky.
Seriously.
I mean, and even then, I don't know how much I want the government involved at that point, because it's for pennies on the dollar. Come on. It's not even that serious. Not worth it. So explain to me, with your savings, a sink fund.
Okay. So before we get to the sink fund, we do have to go back to the 3 to 6 months emergency fund. We have to understand what these funds are for, right? When you're doing your 401k and your stuff like that, that's your investment. That's the stuff that's going to protect you. That's the stuff that's going to take 20 to 25 year you. You're going to turn back and say, thank you, 35-year-old me. Thank you, 40-year-old me, for making those moves, because they're benefiting me now, right? That's the offensive things that we do to try to protect ourselves. So we have to do some defense, because we want to never have to go and touch those funds to handle an emergency or to handle something simple as buying a new car. So the emergency fund is our insurance. The same thing with the sink fund. These are our insurances. This is very important, because they provide, like you have a car insurance that provides you in an accident. The emergency provides you in the accident of an HVAC, a washing machine, a dryer, a sink, a leaky roof. That's what that emergency fund comes in. The sink fund, remember, you just got completely out of debt. So that $250 that you saved that you was paying monthly for your car, instead of taking it and saying, man, what's something nice I can buy, you dump it into what's called a sink fund to say, okay, I'm going to continue to put this money here. That way, if I don't need to replace my car in 3, 4, 5 years, that money will turn around and give me, I would have to do the math, but it'll give me X amount of dollars plus what's left over in my car because it's time to upgrade or change or whatever the case may be. So those sink funds, you turn around and you say, now that I'm away from debt and I've got my budget down, now I got to think forward. How do I think forward? Okay, I know in a couple of years I need a new car. I know in a couple of years I need to upgrade X. I need to change Y. I need to upgrade the washer, the this, the that. You know these things because you can see them. So you do the annotation of the price and you can dump it into a sink fund. So.
Okay. I like that. I'm taking notes just so you know. If I look down, I'm writing down notes.
So I'm trying to be as descriptive as possible so you understand.
You should, I wish I could show you my office. I've got 4 or 5 notebooks all laid out and they've all got various different notes. So that's why at one point I was like, damn it, where's my notebook? So, okay. Because, I'm buying a house. So these things are kind of our goal is a new build because he had an already built house. He went through repairing a roof, repairing, the pool, repairing the AC and all that. He doesn't want to go through that. And I understand that. I get it. Our concern right now is we don't want to buy too much house and not necessarily too big of a house. We don't want to buy too much of a mortgage. That's our concern. It's, I'm renting and my rent goes up every 6 months. You would think every year. No, the shit goes up every 6 months. So you're at a point where you're like, if I spend another $300, I can be paying a mortgage that's mine and not somebody else's. So that's kind of where we're at.
So here's the recommendation when it comes to loans for homes. Your home expenses or your shelter expense should never be more than 25% of your income. So some states, this is not a universal rule because if you live in California, you live in New York, you live in Boston, it's not feasible. But if you have the opportunity and if you want to say, okay, yeah, even though I work in downtown Tampa, I'm willing to drive from Wesley Chapel because the home rates are cheaper in Wesley Chapel, then I don't know if that's the case anymore. But
no,
you know what I'm saying? If you move out to Pasco, you move out a little further, the home rates start to go down. So you have to find the risk reward on that. And the reason I say 25% is because it's part of the 4 walls, right? 25% of that, food, food, utilities, and transportation. Those are the things that you look at and you say to yourself, okay, how much home can I truly afford? There's calculators out there that'll break it down for you, break down the mortgages and things like that. Another piece of advice, if I was going to do a home, when I do my home, I'm going to be looking for a 15-year fixed rate mortgage, right? Because if you do a 30-year or a 25-year, 20-year, if you're 40 years old and you do a 20-year mortgage, you're going to be paying that thing off right before you retire. That's a long time. So a 30-year mortgage for a 35-year-old, you're going to be sitting at, now I'm 65, now I'm ready to retire, and now I'm making the final payment on my home. You don't really want to be there. You want to have it paid off and start to take the money that you was normally putting in, that $1,000 or whatever, and invest it somewhere else. You want to be able to take it and use that compound interest for you over those 5 years, 15-year time frame from the point that you stop paying to the point that you retire. So that's important.
That makes sense.
And that goes into some of the other opportunities that you can do outside of the 401k. When I'm talking about investing, you have to be able to say to yourself, you have to look at the opportunity cost for everything that you do. When you start to weigh the opportunity cost, what you're gaining and what you're losing, then you start to see, okay, how much does this $5 coffee cost me every day if I give it up for the next year? How much does a 15-year mortgage cost me versus a 30-year mortgage cost me? How much am I paying in interest? What's the difference if I do X versus Y? So always weigh the opportunity cost. That's where the 24 rule comes into play too. It's good to look for better deals. It's good to say, okay, I'm going to sleep on it and see if it's worth it. But the other thing is to weigh the opportunity. What's the cost if I take this same $500 and I put it in a growth stock mutual fund and I let it ride for the next 5 years versus paying for this nice TV that I really want,
Just because I want it, not because I need it, not because the TV I have is broken.
I need an
but
upgrade.
because,
I got a 55.
technology.
I need to go to 65. So something crazy.
Exactly. I mean, I've got a 32-inch in my room and I'm happy as can be. And my kids are like, Mom, don't you think it's time for a new TV?
Right.
I'm like, it's not broken. Why am I going to replace it? It works. I can do Netflix on it. I can do Amazon Prime on it. I'm good. Like, why would I upgrade it? But no, I like that, putting away the money is really important. So explain to me how we can get these multiple income sources.
Okay. So it's all about opportunities too, right? Let's look at some opportunities outside of our normal savings accounts that we do with 401ks and stuff like that. There's some other places where we can make money. That's investing in a Roth IRA. That's investing in HSA accounts, because they do investing in there while taking care of your medical, while giving you the opportunity to invest in the stock market tax-free and take it out tax-free. 529 plans for your kids gives you some tax-free investing. It also lowers your income tax rate. Same thing with ESA plans. ESAs are educational savings accounts, which allows you to, again, invest tax-free for your children's education, and it lowers your tax rate. High yield savings accounts gives you opportunities to make money on your accounts. And I'm not talking about leaving them in a bank account where it doesn't get 0.000001%. I'm talking you can get 1 to 2%. Well, not 2, but anywhere between 0.5 to 1% rate of return on a high yield savings. Same thing with money market accounts. You can get anywhere between 1 to 2. CDs gets used 1 to 2, maybe 1 to 5. So these are opportunities where you can take money and have the money make money for you, right? These are, I wouldn't say income sources, but they give you the opportunity to make a little extra money with your money. Now, that plays into, we got to keep in mind that plays into your time horizons too. So if you're looking to have quick access to money, meaning anywhere between 5 years or less, that's where high yield savings accounts, money market, CDs come into play. If you're looking for long-term investments where you're planning for something, or you want to be able to see a rate of return that's going to help you plan for something, that's where your Roth IRAs, your HSAs, your 529s, your ESAs go into play, because you're thinking 5 years or longer. So that understanding your savings time horizons or your time horizons is going to give you the idea of how you can make a little extra money on those things. Now, those are those types of income sources using your current cash flow. If you want to create cash flow, there's other types of SMEs, as they say, small to medium enterprises, where this is where I'm talking about creating your own business of cleaning gutters, mowing lawns, Molly Maid, cleaning office buildings, cleaning homes. These are opportunities to make money. There's other opportunities like websites like Fiverr or Virtual Assistant, where you can use your services. Let's say you're really good at proofreading. You can sell that ability to proofread somebody's book. Let's say you're good at accounting. You can sell your accounting ability to help somebody manage their bookkeeping. Small portions, but this is out there. These are websites that you can apply for and actually do it on your free time. Other ways, surveys. Let's say you don't want to spend money when you go out. There's tools and things out there that allow you to do restaurant surveys, movie surveys, random computer surveys, and they all give you money. They give you something, whether it be a free dinner for the dinner things, a free movie plus popcorn and food for a movie review, or a movie theater review. Same thing with the online reviews. You can get gift cards to restaurants, to get gift cards to Amazon, eBay, different things. And this is money that you can in turn use to make purchases. So that's it.
Yeah, I do grocery surveys where I scan my groceries, things I'm buying anyways. I come home, put them all on a table, scan them into this app. And like the other day I had a $50 gift card sitting in my inbox, and I'm like, for Amazon. And I'm like, where the hell did that come from? And I'm like, oh, because I did my surveys for the month. So yeah, I definitely, the surveys
and
does come
all
in
this
handy.
helps because we do have expenses. We have back to school for books, pens, things and that. You got a $50 gift card, you might be able to buy a good portion of that stuff. USB cards now, because you're going to need those things. Maybe even continue to save and buy a laptop, different things for the house. Who knows? Other things that you can do that a lot of people don't think about is you can sell stuff. You can sell things that you have at your house that you just don't need. You can sell things for other people and make money on that. You know, freeing up cash is my biggest thing. Your biggest wealth building tool is your income, is your job, right? So to me, investing in yourself, I know this is not making money, this is spending money, but when you invest in yourself, it turns around and it grows. So I'm going to use you as an example, right? You have a 9-to-5 job that you do, but you invested time, energy, and some education to build this site, to build this tool. And we don't have to get into your financials or anything like that, but this is going to start to be, or this is generating some sort of income for you because of that. You're selling items or you're giving advertising time and stuff like that. So it turns into incomes. But you had to, in order to do that, you had to invest in yourself. That is correct. Another way to make income, to increase your income by investing in yourself, investing in something that you feel that you need to do. Bottom line, the Nike logo, just do it. Don't worry about business plans, naming conventions, emails, business cards, all that stuff. Just start where you are, because as you go, it's the domino effect. As you start, that little domino can knock down a 2-story domino. And you just don't know what you don't know. So you have to learn and you have to grow. Correct. You can't be afraid to take risks. You just have to be focused and not finished.
Correct. No, that's, I 100% agree with that, especially with the investing in yourself part. I mean, I started this podcast platform. It was more of a outlet, more of a way for me to just kind of get shit off my chest. And, you know, it's mainly self-discovery, finding my ways. And you and I, you know, you've known me a really long time, that where I was at 10 years ago to where I'm at now is not the same person. And, you know, it's a whole journey. So that's why I started off this podcast. It wasn't the intention of making money, but have I made money off of it?
Exactly.
Absolutely. Can I continue to make money off of it? Absolutely. I mean, I joined the, and I'm always advertising it but Idea to Launch Academy. That's one of the first things she tells you. She's like, you know, don't jump into this if money is your reasoning behind it. But can you make money off of it? Absolutely. It just all depends on how much you hustle and how much you put into it for yourself. So definitely got to invest in yourself. And not many people realize that. They're too busy on the now.
That goes to the other thing about, you know, franchising and moving into businesses and moving into small to medium enterprises. It's very important because America, the misconception is that in America, you work hard and you're going to be successful. No, America was built for the entrepreneur. Capitalism was built for entrepreneurs to grow and succeed, for ideas to flourish, right? So you have to understand that you want to change your tax brackets, you want to change your stuff and free up more cash for you. As you start to move into business, then your whole mind frame changes, and your products and services and things like that start to make money that you don't have to work 24 hours a day for. They start to make money while you're sleeping. They start to do things while you're sleeping. And that's what America's built off of. That's what the idea is. It was never the idea to go work for a corporation from 9 to 5, give them 40 hours of your life, 40 to 60 hours of your life a week, and then they pay you. It was never meant to be that way. It was meant to force us to work on ideas and expand and flourish ourselves.
No, absolutely. And I think that's the problem, is that we're too busy. We wake up, go to work, come home, worry about it, and start all over and do the whole cycle again. Is, that whole 9 to 5 concept. And I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't want to work forever. I don't want to sit here having to clock in and out every single day. Like, I like to travel. I like to be home. I like to sleep. And I want to sleep during the day. I'm a night owl. I like to watch movies late night. I don't want to get up the next morning to clock in at 9 o'clock to be at work. So I definitely, looking long-term, want to continue to try and see where I can invest and where I can make extra money. Because at some point, if I could retire at 40, I'd be
Yeah.
happy. But that's 5 years from now. Can I
It
make it?
can be done. It really can
Who
be
knows?
done. And
Absolutely.
sometimes when we say we don't want to work, you have to understand the definition. So for like me, let's talk about franchising. Let's say you work into a company. You're working your 9 to 5 and it's a boring job and that. But let's say you spend, like Starbucks for a prime example, you spend the $10,000 to get the franchise tag and get the business. Yes, you're working probably 40 to 60 hours, maybe 80 hours a week, but it's yours. It's your stuff. It no longer becomes work. It becomes an enjoyment because you're the owner. You make all the decision makings. You do what you have to do. When you can make it as good or as bad as you want. You can make it as successful or not successful as you want because it's yours. It's your baby. Yeah. You do with it as you can. Yes, in situations like owning a Starbucks to 7, there's a corporation that's going to tell you responsibilities. But at the end of the day, your location, your stuff, how you open, how you close, how you run it, who you employ, how you do your taxes, how you do your stuff is all you. That's important.
Correct.
That's the difference. It's no longer work. It's an enjoyment. Yes, it's work by definition, but it's yours.
It's yours.
And it's your enjoyment. So.
Yep. Yeah, no. Like when I say I want to retire at 40, I don't mean I want to stop working. I want to leave the corporate by 40. I want to own my own business. And, I've got goals in mind that I plan on pursuing as much as possible to make that happen at 40 years old. I don't want to work, I look at my mom and she busts her ass all the time. And my grandmother just retired 2 years ago, maybe 3. The woman's 70 something years old. And she has, all of my life I've known that woman has worked multiple jobs. And I'm like, I don't want to be 70 something years old, still working. And not necessarily still working because I'm okay working for myself. I don't want to answer to somebody else and they're above my head. I want to have my own business, my, something that's mine that I can later leave on for my kids that they can take over if they choose to. I don't think so, that's a hard one because one wants to go into football and the other one wants to go into the army. And I'm like, where are you going? But, it's there. The possibility is there. We just have to, like you said, just do it.
These are very important things that you're talking about. Our older generation worked hard to accomplish whatever that is they accomplished. They relied heavily on Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. They relied heavily on those things because they were told that it was going to protect them, right? But that was back in the 1940s. That was back in the 1920s when the Great Depression went on and all that stuff. And where is it now? It's not protecting us. It's not there to help us. So what does that mean? That means it's our responsibility to take care of ourselves. And what a lot of people forget is there is 100% chance that you're going to retire. There is not 100% chance that your kid's going to go to college, right? So we don't have to sit down and say, oh, I need to turn around and save for my child's college fund. And I'm going to put that ahead of my retirement fund. I'm going to put that ahead of my paying my home off early. I'm going to put that ahead of X, Y, and Z. So if you got to remember, you have to take care of you to then be able to take care of the next generation. That's where getting out of debt, paying off, paying into retirement, paying off your home, and setting those things in motion. Not only do they benefit you, but your children also see what you're doing. It's not always what we tell them, is what they see about us. Because just like your husband or your wife, they know the intimate intricacies of your life. So you can tell the world one thing, but they've seen you at your best, they've seen you at your worst, and they see what you do day in and day out. That's why it's important to say, how do I handle my finances? How do I stay completely out of debt and protect my legacy? Because when they see those things and they grow up and they learn that, they're going to make better decisions, which means their kids are going to have a better situation than we're providing our kids. And that's all we really want at the end of the day.
Correct. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm really big on teaching them, how to handle money because, like I said, I wasn't really taught how to handle money or how to take care of it, how to save. I mean, I know my mother saved.
Right.
I don't know how she saved. I don't know, how her process for budgeting was. I never learned that. I had to learn that as an adult. And, I actually learned that late into my 20s, way after the fact. I was already a mother. I was already living on my own when I had to learn that. So I definitely want my kids to learn that early on. And I want them to understand why things are done a certain way and why you budget a certain way. And, everybody tailors budgeting to their own situations. And that's super important. There is not a right or wrong way of budgeting.
No one size fits all.
Correct. So, any last thoughts before I go ahead and move on to my next segment?
I think we've covered a lot of ground. It's been a pretty good talk. I think we've hopefully taught some people along the way. So we'll see how it goes.
I mean, I've learned, and shit, I was like, all right, this will be great because I'm kind of going through this process, and and it's like, damn, I still have a lot to learn. So I'm really thankful for that. I appreciate that, you reached out to me, and that wasn't even finances was definitely not one of my, this is what I'm going to talk about. When you reached out and you said it, I was like, yeah, like that's definitely, I was like, wait a second, that's an important factor in life, especially right now that, looking to buy a house, I'm looking to save, and, I've got my 5-year goal and my 10-year goal as far as working goes. So yeah, I really appreciate you coming on to discuss that. I'm going to move into my next segment. It's my Pero Seriously moment. And it's, something that happened recently, something that just had you sit back and be like, pero did that seriously happen? And my biggest concern this week, and I'm sure a lot of parents as well, is sending our kids back to school with this pandemic that's going on, the coronavirus. For, anybody who's living under a rock, school starts in Florida technically in
yes.
Is it 2 weeks?
The 10th, I believe.
Yeah, right?
Right?
No. Yeah. So we're supposed to start the 10th. They're pushing it. They're trying to push it for the 24th.
That's crazy.
But it doesn't make a difference, brick or mortar versus e-learning. Like, we're sending our kids to, I've been calling it a bacteria pool, a virus pool, because
oh,
that's what it is. You send your kid to school. Tell me, right or wrong. You send your kid to school. They've spent all summer at home with you. You send them to school. What happens that first month?
Everybody gets sick.
They get sick. They come home with the flu. They come home with the cold, with pink eye, chicken pox, with this, with that, the other. And it's like, we're sending our kids to school, and the coronavirus is still
it's still rampant
out there. I have until midnight tonight to decide, am I sending my kids to school or am I going to make them e-learn? And I don't know if I can make them e-learn because I don't know if my job's going to let me continue to work from home.
Dilemma.
The huge dilemma. Because I can't, I've got a 13 and a 14-year-old. And this e-learning from March until June was a struggle. I had one that would wake up at 6 a.m, do all his assignments. By 9 o'clock, he was sleeping again. I don't know where the kid got the, like, I'm going to get up at 6. I'm going to bust my ass. I'm going to do what I have to. I'm going to go to bed at 9 o'clock, and I'm going to go back to sleep. Then I had the other one that would sleep in till 12, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, get up, and at 8 o'clock at night, he's still doing his schoolwork. And then, I don't know if you know, I've got temporary custody of my little brother. And he's in 2nd grade. So that's the one that I had to hold by his hand and be like, all right, you got to do this assignment. You got to do this assignment. Like, we had a whole checklist going on for him from 8 to 9. This is what you were doing. From 9 to 9:30, you're doing this. I can't. I don't think it's going to be able to be done.
Not for everybody, not for a whole 8 months, but 9 months. So.
Exactly. But I don't, I think we're putting such a huge pressure on our teachers as well. Like, they didn't sign up to be nurses. They didn't sign up to wear PPE, to take care of, to be, teaching their students. And I know a lot of parents use school as a babysitting tactic, and that bothers me. And I don't know why it bothers me.
I understand.
It does.
Because we're supposed to be parents. At the end of the day, we're supposed to be parents. There's stuff that the school's supposed to teach them, math, English, science, history, so on and so forth. But the real learning should come from home, not from school, bottom line.
Absolutely.
So, didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
It bothers me, I think, that I started nursing school. And I left nursing school because I got to a point where I realized I didn't like people that much. And I know it sounds horrible, but I literally left a very good paying job to go be a patient care tech, making $10 an hour so that I can continue nursing school. And I am grateful that I did that, because in that year, I realized I do not like taking care of people. I'll do it taking care of my kids. I'll take care of my family. I'll do home health care every once in a while. I still have my CNA license. But people become a different demon when they're in the hospital or when they're sick. You see a completely different side of people, aside from seeing a different side of people's family members. I mean, my family goes into the hospital, I'm there to take care of them. I'm going to wash them hand and foot. I'm going to do everything possibly so that the nurse or the doctor or the tech doesn't have to care for them. People would sit back and be like, they need this, they need that. And it's like, where are your hands? Can you not help them? So I learned I didn't like taking care of people. I could never be a teacher. I don't like being around kids that much. I've got 12 nieces and nephews. Probably got like 15 actually. Plus 2 on the way. And I'm like, I don't like kids that much. I can't teach them. So for us to think that our teachers are babysitters or that they're nurses, they're specialized in English, math, reading, American history, whatever it is that they specialize. They did not specialize in taking care of our children during these times when they're sick or they can get sick.
So the issue is there, we've got a society where school is a staple, right? So 9 to 10 months out the year, just that window for 9 to 10 months is a staple for kids, right? Of course, there's holidays in between where we're responsible for them 2 to 3 weeks or whatever, but that 9 to 10 months is the staple out the year. When you look at the pandemic and what it's teaching us, to be completely honest, it's not teaching us anything new, right? It's stuff that we should already be doing. How we clean the surfaces, how we maintain our health and well-being personally, how we interact with others when we're sick. These are not new things, right? This should have been taken care of from the flu days, from the 2003 version of SARS, which is the other coronavirus that we had. These things should have already been in place and we should have already been working on them. It's just, now we're starting to see this particular disease that has a higher probability of killing people. It doesn't have a higher kill rate, but it has a higher probability of killing people. And so now it's causing people to think twice about standard everyday living, you know? And if it's actually forcing us to go back to the family unit and rely on ourselves and kind of do our stuff. So talking about the school stuff, it's a hard question, right? Like, now you have to decide to yourself, is school that important? Is the structure, is the way school is done right now that important? Is it important to pay for school for some of those that are going to go to private school, for charter schools or this, for those that are going to go to private colleges or whatever? It's the same thing. Is it worth one, putting yourself in a position where you can contract the virus, and then is it worth the money on some other stuff as well? So I personally think that the social interaction piece is a very important portion of schooling, right? Yes, math, English, science is very important, but I feel that the social interaction is a very important piece of schooling, because this is where they start to learn how to interact, how to talk, how to handle disappointment, how to handle rejection and stuff like that they don't get at home. So that's why I really feel strongly about them going back to school. But at the same time, we have to look at the health and welfare of the people. And unfortunately, the public school system is not the greatest place when it comes to health and welfare.
Right. One of my concerns about the social interaction, though, is that a lot of that is being robbed from them. They used to have all the clusters. You put the 4 desks together. Now they're going to be spaced out 6 feet apart from each other. They're taking away breakfast and lunch. Now the kids are going to get a boxed lunch if they don't bring their own lunch, and they're going to eat in their classroom. So now you've taken away that social interaction at lunchtime. Extracurricular activities are being canceled, or if they're not being canceled, they're being distanced. I mean, I'm a marching band nerd. My son is going into marching band, and they should be at band camp right now, full band, and they're being taught in groups of 50. So when do you pull the full band together to practice to know what you're supposed to be gonna do? They're talking about still doing the football season, but with nobody in the stands. Like, where's the social interaction?
Where's the enjoyment for the kids that are actually playing?
Correct, absolutely. My son's football season, a local team here, was canceled this season. They decided they're not going to do a fall season because of what's going on. But then you go up the street to the league on the other side of the county, they're having a season. So it's like, do I put my son, Mom, can I join this league? And it's like, I don't know, like, what are they doing? What are those parents doing to protect, to make sure that you don't get sick? Because I had the scare, I literally, today marks day 15, day 16. I got out of my house for the first time yesterday because I came in contact with someone who tested positive. And so then, you get quarantined. Not only do you get quarantined, I got sick, those first 2 days I had a fever, I had chills, the sweats, I was, my body hurt. Like, I literally thought I had it. By the grace of God, I have a negative test. Is it a false negative? I don't know. I haven't had any symptoms since then. I haven't seen my kids in 3.5 weeks, 4 weeks, almost a month, because they went to their dad's for a week and then I was quarantined. And I was like, I can't get my kids back yet. And my son is like, Mom, can I come home? I was like, not yet. He's like, but football practice is starting. I'm like, I don't know if I want you to do
I don't want you to have to go through this.
I want you to get sick. And it's like, everybody's like, oh, but this is just like the flu. The difference is that the flu killed 100,000 people in 1 year. Coronavirus has killed over 100,000 people in 6 months. There's a difference. It's not the same thing. The symptoms may be similar.
Coronavirus has every symptom. So if you got a hangnail, you might have coronavirus. Everything. It's like it has every symptom.
If you're throwing up, you're dizzy, you might have coronavirus. It's like my sister who's pregnant is like, she's got morning sickness. Look at her. Do you have coronavirus? Like,
I mean, we laugh, but it's a very serious thing. You don't know unless you go get tested.
Correct.
And even if you get tested, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have it. You could just be asymptomatic of some sort, and you're not spreading the virus, or you're not actually going to get all of the full-blown sickness and die, or even just the sickness.
Well, not only that, the testing, you get tested on Tuesday, you don't get your results till the following Wednesday, Thursday. It's 7 to 10 days before you get your results. And it's like, all right, so they tell you, you take the test, you get quarantined, and then you're like, all right, do I have it? Because you can still be positive a month later, 2 months later, you're just asymptomatic.
Exactly.
That's it. So, sending the kids to school is definitely one of those things that, like, I have lost a ton of sleep over. It stresses me out ridiculously because I don't want them to lose that social interaction, that, being around their teacher or learning from someone who specializes in teaching. But I also don't want my kids to get sick. I don't want them bringing it home.
Get everybody sick.
Right? Like, I thought, like, I have a thought process. Is like, I was telling my fiance, I was like, all right, we're going to send them to school And when they get home from school, there's a sanitizer by the door. They're going to strip down to their underwear. They're going to, sanitize their backpack, and nothing is going to step foot into the actual house. And he's like, you're going to have them strip outside? I said, no, there's a foyer. Like, they'll come into the foyer. I'll Lysol them down. And then they come into the rest of the house. And he's looking at me. He's like, you're taking it a little too far. I'm like, I don't want to get sick. So it's like, it's a back and forth. I think I am going to send them, especially since it's being pushed, hopefully 2 more weeks. Hillsborough County is looking to do August 24th. So I normally end my show with a segment I call Palabras de la Semana. And it's basically just a word, a quote, a phrase, a Bible verse, something that has helped me along with this journey of, self-discovery, finding out where I fit in, where I belong in life, and what my general purpose is supposed to be. And so this week's Palabras de la Semana I'm going to use is going to be, do something today that your future self will thank you for. And I think based on our financial talk and based on, the budgeting, the saving, like that's a very important thing to do, is do something today that's gonna, like you said, that your 70-year-old self could look back and say, hey, thank you, 37-year-old self, because I really appreciate what you did that day to set your foundation for where we're at today. So I appreciate that. I appreciate you coming on, Lenny. It's been a long time since we've talked and seen each other. It has, but I'm definitely grateful for our friendship. I'm grateful that, you brought up this financial topic, because I didn't even think of it. I didn't even think that was something to discuss. And I learned so much that I will be reaching out more often and be like, hey, how do I do this? Or where do I look up this information?
Definitely. This is one of the areas, like I said, I started my journey about 10 years ago. This is one of the areas that I saw that it's a global epidemic, or a global pandemic, so to speak, where finances are looked at from a consumer standpoint instead of a wealth building standpoint. We focus so much on managing debt that we don't focus on what is 70-year-old self going to do. Yeah, you can't manage debt when you're 90. You have to be out of debt and manage your wealth. Like, what do you do to retire? So that's a huge thing. So yeah.
All right, my friends, mi gente, that's all I have for this week. If you like what you heard on this week's episode, or if you want to reach out to Lenny, I'll put your IG in the show description. Be sure to take a moment to rate and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. I will be reading future reviews on other episodes. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so that you're notified when a new episode drops.